Imagine you've spent your entire life invisible, head down, voice small, told you're not enough. Then one night under a blood-red moon, fate finally looks at you. Your mate bond snaps into place, and it's not just any wolf. It's the Lycan King himself, the most powerful feared alpha alive. Your heart explodes, finally. Someone who has to want you. Someone who has to choose you. But then he opens his mouth. Nobody else wanted you. I only claimed you out of pity. The words hit like a blade to the chest. The entire pack watches. Your cheeks burn. Your wolf whimpers. And in that moment, everything you ever hoped for shatters. But what happens next? What does a rejected Omega do when the king, who was supposed to love her, calls her worthless in front of everyone? Does she cry? Does she run? Does she beg?
Before we continue, please kindly tell us where you are watching from, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because every day we have amazing stories that will make your day.
Chapter 1. The Pity Claim. The full moon bled crimson over the Blackthorn packlands, turning the ancient clearing into a circle of fire and shadow. Hundreds of wolves stood in rigid silence, alphas, betas, warriors, omegas, all eyes fixed. On the raised stone platform, where fate was about to collide, Seraphina Kane had never stood on that platform before. She'd spent 24 years skirting its edges, head down, shoulders hunched, invisible, an omega born to a low-ranking family that had died in a rogue attack when she was 12. The pack had taken her in out of duty, not kindness. She cleaned hearths, mended clothes, fetched water at dawn. No one ever asked her name. Tonight, though, the mate bond had chosen. It hit her like lightning the moment she stepped into the clearing. For the annual moon? Right. Her gaze lifted, against every instinct and locked with his. Lucian Blackwood, the Lycan King. Alpha of the Blackthorn Pack and ruler of every territory. From the shadowed mountains to the eastern seas, towering, broad-shouldered, black hair falling in dangerous waves, eyes the color of storm clouds edged with silver, power radiated from him like heat from a forge. Even the oldest wolves lowered their heads instinctively. The bond snapped taut between them. Seraphina's wolf, quiet, timid, rarely daring to surface, surged forward with a desperate, joyful howl inside her mind. Him, ours. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack them. For the first time in her life, hope tasted real. Someone would finally see her. The moon goddess herself had chosen her for the most powerful wolf alive. Lucian's nostrils flared. His pupils blew wide. He felt it too, the pack murmured. Whispers rippled like wind through dry leaves. Then he descended the steps. Every movement predatory grace. He stopped inches from her, close. Enough that she could smell cedar smoke and raw masculinity. His gaze raked over her, the faded dress, the scars on her arms from years of labor, the way her hands trembled at her sides. Seraphina lifted her chin just enough to meet his eyes. She waited for the words every she-wolf dreamed of. I claim you. You are mine. Instead, his lip curled. Nobody else wanted you. The growl was low, venomous. Meant only for her ears, but the wind carried it anyway. I only claimed you out of pity. The world tilted. Seraphina felt the bond twist, blacken, turn to razor wire in her chest. Her wolf whimpered once, sharp, broken, then retreated, tail tucked, curling into the darkest corner of her soul. Humiliation burned hotter than any flame she'd ever known. Her cheeks flamed. Her throat closed. Her legs shook beneath her. The pack stared, some with pity, some with cruel amusement. All of them watching the Omega get exactly what she deserved. Lucian stepped closer, towering over her. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Don't look so surprised, little Omega. Fate makes mistakes sometimes. Lucky for you, I'm honorable enough to fix them. He reached out, fingers brushing her jaw in a mockery of tenderness. The touch sent unwanted sparks racing across her skin, the bond refusing to die even as he tried to strangle it. Seraphina's breath hitched. She hated how her body still reacted, hated how part of her wanted to lean into that hand, but she didn't. She jerked back. One step, then another. The pack gasped. Lucian's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? Seraphina's voice came out quiet at first, barely above a whisper, but it carried. You think pity is what I need from you? She let the words hang, sharp as silver. You think the moon goddess would bind me to a king who sees only weakness when he looks at me? A low growl rumbled from her own chest, her wolf no longer hiding. Rising, I am not your charity. I am not your burden, and I will never be your pity. She stepped forward this time, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his body, smell the spike of surprise in his scent. If you cannot see the queen standing right in front of you, then you do not deserve her. Silence. Absolute. Deafening. Lucian's jaw clenched. His eyes flashed silver, anger, confusion, something darker. Seraphina turned. Not to run, not to hide. She walked. Head high. Shoulders back. Every step deliberate, regal. The pack parted for her like water before a blade. As she passed the last row of wolves, she let her wolf rise just enough. Her eyes flashed molten gold. Her aura shifted, crackling with raw, untamed power no Omega was ever supposed to possess. The wolves closest to her stumbled back instinctively. Then the howling started. Not mocking. Not cruel. Awe. Pure, reverent, bone-deep awe. Hundreds of voices lifted in a chorus that shook the trees, honoring the she-wolf they had overlooked for so long. Lucian stood frozen on the platform, the weight of his own words crashing down on him like an avalanche. He had just rejected the greatest gift the moon goddess had ever given him. And she? She kept walking into the shadowed forest, the howls echoing behind her like thunder. But she wasn't running away. She was walking toward something. Her power, buried, forgotten, waiting, stirred beneath her skin like a sleeping beast finally waking. And somewhere deep in the night, as the pack's song rose to the blood-red moon, Seraphina smiled. Small, fierce, untouchable. Because she had just claimed something far more powerful than a mate. She had claimed herself. Chapter 2. The Awakening Fire. The howls of the Blackthorn pack faded behind Seraphina like a distant storm, swallowed by the thick wall of ancient pines. She didn't look back. Not once. Her bare feet sank into the cool moss, each step carrying her deeper into the forbidden territory beyond the pack borders. Lands no sane wolf would dare enter alone. The air grew heavier here, thick with the scent of wild magic and old blood. Moonlight filtered through the canopy in thin silver blades, painting her skin in shifting patterns. She walked until the ground sloped downward, and the trees parted to reveal a hidden hot spring. Steam rose in lazy curls from the black water, glowing faintly under the crimson moon. The sight stopped her cold. For the first time since Lucian's words had sliced her open, Seraphina felt something other than rage and heartbreak. She felt alive. Her hands moved almost on their own. She reached behind her neck, fingers trembling only slightly, and untied the thin straps of her faded dress. The fabric slid down her body like a shed skin, pooling at her ankles. She stepped out of it naked, scars and all, and stood bare under the moon. The night air kissed every inch of her skin. Goosebumps raced across her arms, her breasts, the curve of her hips. She had never been this exposed, not even to herself. She walked into the water. It was hot. Shockingly so. The heat wrapped around her calves, then her thighs, then higher until she sank to her shoulders with a soft, involuntary gasp. Steam enveloped her like a lover's breath. For long moments she simply floated, eyes closed, letting the water cradle her battered heart. Then the bond flared. Lucian's face flashed behind her eyelids, those storm cloud eyes, the cruel curl of his lip, the way his fingers had brushed her jaw. The memory should have hurt. Instead, it ignited something darker, hungrier. Her wolf stirred, not the timid creature she'd known all her life. This wolf was awake, ferocious, starving. Seraphina's hand drifted down her body almost without thought. Her fingertips grazed the sensitive skin just below her navel, then lower. She hesitated, then pressed. A soft moan escaped her lips. The water rippled around her as she touched herself, slow at first, exploratory. Every stroke sent sparks racing through her veins. The bond pulsed in time with her heartbeat, feeding her pleasure even as it ached with rejection. She hated him for it. She wanted him because of it. Her other hand rose to her breast, rolling the hardened peak between her fingers. Her breath came faster, shallower. The heat of the spring mingled with the fire building low in her belly. Lucian, she whispered, half curse, half plea. The name tasted like sin on her tongue. Her fingers moved faster now, circling, pressing, chasing the edge. Her hips rocked instinctively against her own hand. Water splashed softly around her. She imagined him here, towering over her, pinning her against the smooth rocks. growling her name as he took what he'd thrown away. The fantasy pushed her over. Her climax hit hard and sudden. She cried out, sharp, wild, echoing through the trees. Golden light burst from her skin in a brilliant flare, illuminating the steam like fireflies made of sunlight. The water around her glowed for a heartbeat before fading. She slumped against the rocky edge, panting, trembling. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She felt dangerous. The golden light had left something behind, a faint shimmer beneath her skin like embers waiting to be stoked. Her wolf howled softly inside her mind, no longer whimpering. Proud. Seraphina rose from the water, droplets sliding down her body like liquid silver. She didn't bother with the dress. Let the night see her. Let the forest know what she was becoming. She stepped onto the mossy bank head high, every movement fluid and powerful. That was when she smelled it. Rogue, male, feral, close. A low snarl rolled through the darkness. From the shadows stepped a massive wolf, black fur matted with old blood, eyes burning yellow. An alpha rogue, exiled and starving, drawn by the sudden flare of her power. He shifted mid-stride, becoming a towering man, scarred, naked, muscles corded with violence. Well, well, he rasped, voice gravel and hunger. What's a little Omega doing all alone in my territory, smelling like power and sex? Seraphina didn't flinch. She smiled, small, sharp, lethal. I'm not an Omega anymore. Her eyes flashed molten gold. The rogue lunged, and the fight began. Chapter 3, Blood and Claim. The rogue alpha lunged with the speed of a predator who had killed for survival every day of his exile. Seraphina didn't scream, she didn't flinch. She moved. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Instincts she never knew she possessed surging to the surface like a dam breaking. She twisted to the side, bare feet sliding across wet moss, and the rogue's claws sliced through empty air where her throat had been a heartbeat earlier. He snarled, pivoting with terrifying grace, yellow eyes blazing with feral hunger. You smell like power, little one. Untapped, delicious, I'll take it, and you, before the night ends. Seraphina's heart thundered, but not with fear. With something fiercer, something that tasted like freedom. Her wolf rose inside her. Not the timid shadow she'd carried all her life, but a blazing golden beast. Claws extended, teeth bared. For the first time, Seraphina didn't push her down. She let her out. Golden light exploded from her skin in a blinding wave. Her bones cracked and reshaped in an instant, not with pain, but with exhilarating release. Fur the color of molten sunlight erupted across her body. Her eyes burned pure gold. She landed on 4 massive paws, larger than any Omega should ever be, tail lashing like a whip. The rogue froze for one stunned second. Then he laughed, low, guttural, delighted. A hidden Luna, even better. He shifted back into his wolf form, black as midnight, scarred and massive and charged. They collided like thunder. Claws raked, fangs snapped. Bodies slammed together in a brutal dance of fury and power. The rogue was stronger. Years of exile had honed him into a killing machine. He drove her back, teeth sinking into her shoulder. Pain flared hot and bright, but Seraphina didn't retreat. She twisted, using his momentum against him, and drove her shoulder into his chest with enough force to crack ribs. He staggered. She didn't give him time to recover. She lunged again, jaws closing around his foreleg. Bone crunched. He howled in rage and pain, swiping at her face. She dodged, barely, and countered with a slash across his flank that opened him to the bone. Blood sprayed across the moss. The metallic scent filled the air, mixing with the steam from the hot spring. The rogue staggered, breathing hard, yellow eyes wide with something new. Realization. You're not just an Omega, he rasped, shifting back to human form, clutching his ruined arm. You're something ancient, something the Pax forgot existed. Seraphina shifted too, slow, deliberate, letting him see every inch of the power he had underestimated. She stood naked and blood-streaked under the crimson moon, golden light still flickering beneath her skin like trapped stars. Her voice came out low, steady, dangerous. I was never just anything. The rogue tried to rise. Seraphina stepped forward, pressing one bare foot to his chest, pinning him to the ground. He didn't fight. He couldn't. She leaned down until their faces were inches apart. You came here thinking you could claim what isn't yours. Her lips curved, not a smile, but something sharper. Something queenly. You were wrong. With one final surge of power, she shoved him away. He rolled across the moss, gasping, defeated. Seraphina turned her back on him deliberately. A message. He was no longer a threat. She walked to the edge of the hot spring, scooped water in her hands, and washed the blood from her skin. Each movement was calm. Growl. Inside her chest, the rejected mate bond still ached, a dull, persistent throb. Lucien's face flickered in her mind again. Those storm-silver eyes, the cruel set of his jaw, the way his voice had cut her open. She hated him. She hated how part of her still wanted him. But the ache no longer felt like weakness. It felt like fuel. She closed her eyes and breathed deep. And then she felt it, deep in her blood, ancient and undeniable. Memories that weren't hers. Visions of silver-furred wolves with golden eyes leading entire packs under blood moons. Lunas who commanded not through fear, but through unbreakable will. Power that had been buried for centuries, waiting for the right bloodline to awaken it. Seraphina Kane was no ordinary Omega. She carried the blood of the first Lunas, the forgotten queens who had once ruled beside the greatest alphas and sometimes above them. Her wolf howled inside her mind, not in pain but in triumph. She opened her eyes. The golden light beneath her skin flared brighter for a moment, then settled into a soft, constant glow. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer small. She was awakening. Behind her, the rogue coughed, struggling to his knees. "You'll never be safe," he rasped. "Not with that kind of power. They'll come for you, all of them." Seraphina didn't turn. She simply said, voice quiet but carrying the weight of prophecy, "Let them come." She walked away from the hot spring, deeper into the forbidden forest, leaving the defeated rogue behind. The trees seemed to lean toward her as she passed, branches brushing her skin like a caress. The night wind carried her scent, wild jasmine, blood, and raw, untamed power. Somewhere far behind her in the heart of Blackthorn territory, Lucian Blackwood sat alone in his chambers. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. The bond still burned in his chest, twisted, angry, alive. He could feel her. Not just the pain he'd caused, but something else. Something growing. His wolf paced inside him, snarling, restless, furious at the man who had rejected their mate. Lucian's hands clenched into fists until his claws drew blood. He had thrown away the moon goddess's greatest gift, and now that gift was rising, stronger, fiercer, more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. Word would reach him soon, word of an Omega who had slain a rogue alpha single-handedly, word of golden light and a queen awakening in the shadows. And when it did, Lucian Blackwood would realize exactly what he had lost. Seraphina kept walking, head high, heart blazing, destiny burning in her veins. She was no longer waiting to be chosen. She was choosing herself, and the entire world would feel the weight of that choice. Chapter 4. The King's Regret. As dawn broke over the forbidden lands, pale golden light filtered through the dense canopy, turning the mist into shimmering veils. Seraphina paused at the edge of a narrow ravine, her bare skin prickling with the morning chill. The lone figure who had watched her from the tree line was gone, vanished like smoke, but the weight of unseen eyes lingered on her back. She didn't linger. She pressed forward, deeper into uncharted territory, her golden aura flickering faintly beneath her skin like a heartbeat made of fire. Every step felt different now. Stronger, surer. The ancient Luna blood in her veins hummed with quiet power, whispering promises of what she could become. Miles away in the heart of Blackthorn territory, Lucian Blackwood sat alone on the edge of his massive bed, elbows on his knees, head bowed. He hadn't slept. Not since the moonlight, not since her. The chambers of the Lycan King were vast. Dark stone walls hung with ancient tapestries, a roaring fire that never quite warmed the cold that had settled in his bones. The scent of cedar smoke and polished leather filled the air, but beneath it all lingered something sweeter, sharper, impossible to banish. Her scent, wild jasmine, fresh rain, and now something new, something powerful. Lucian's wolf clawed at the inside of his mind, snarling, pacing, furious. Ours, find her, claim her, fix this. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes until he saw stars. "I can't," he growled aloud to the empty room. "I ruined it." The rejected bond still burned in his chest like a brand, raw, angry, alive. Every heartbeat carried echoes of her, the way her chin had lifted when he'd spat those cruel words, the molten gold flash in her eyes when she'd called him unworthy, the regal line of her spine as she'd walked away from him and the entire pack. He had meant to humiliate her, to keep control, to prove he didn't need anyone, not even fate. Instead, he had set her free, and now she was rising. Lycan stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room like a caged beast. His claws extended and retracted without conscious thought. Every muscle in his body ached with the need to run, to track her scent through the forest until he found her and dragged her back where she belonged. At his side, beneath him, mine. The word echoed in his skull like a war drum. He slammed his fist into the stone wall. Cracks spiderwebbed outward. Blood trickled from his knuckles. He didn't feel it. All he felt was her absence. A sharp knock at the door shattered the silence. "Enter," he barked. Beta Ronan stepped inside. Tall, scarred, one of the few wolves Lycan trusted completely. His face was grim. "My king, scouts just returned from the borderlands." Lucian's head snapped up. "And?" Ronan hesitated, only for a heartbeat, but it was enough. They found signs of a fight, deep in forbidden territory. A rogue alpha, big one, exiled for years, was torn apart, single-handedly. Lucian's wolf surged forward so violently that silver bled into his irises. "By who?" Ronan swallowed. Her scent was all over the scene. Golden light burned into the moss, claw marks that glowed like embers. The rogue's body. It looked like it had been hit by lightning made of sunlight. Silence stretched taut between them. Lucian's voice came out low, dangerous. "An Omega did that?" "Not an Omega," Ronan said quietly. "Something more. Something the elders used to whisper about in the old stories. A true Luna awakening." Lycan turned away, staring into the fire. Flames danced in his storm-silver eyes. "She's not hiding anymore." Ronan shifted his weight. "The pack is whispering. First about the rejection, now about this. They're starting to question whether you were right to—" "Enough." Lucian's growl cut through the air like a blade. Ronan bowed his head. Lycan closed his eyes, breathing hard through his nose. He could still see her face, the way humiliation had flared into fury, the way she'd stepped toward him instead of away. He had called her weak. He had called her unwanted. And she had proven him wrong in the most devastating way possible. His wolf howled inside him, a sound of grief and rage and desperate longing. Lycan opened his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "Gather the elite trackers, every warrior we can spare." Ronan lifted his head. "My king?" Lycan turned to face him fully, eyes burning silver. "We hunt." Ronan blinked. "For Seraphina?" Lucian's jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped. "For our Luna," he said, the words tasting like ash and truth at the same time. "Before someone else finds her first." Ronan bowed deeply and left without another word. Lycan stood alone again. He walked to the tall window overlooking the packlands. Dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds. Somewhere out there in the wild unknown, Seraphina Kane was becoming something magnificent, and he had pushed her to it. Regret clawed at his chest, sharp, relentless. He had rejected the moon goddess's greatest gift, and now that gift was awakening into a power that could either save his kingdom or burn it to the ground. Lycan pressed his forehead against the cold glass. "I will find you," he whispered to the empty dawn. "I will make this right, even if it cost him everything." Far beyond the pack borders, Seraphina paused on a rocky outcrop, the first rays of true sunlight warming her skin. She lifted her face to the light, eyes closed, breathing deep. The bond still ached. Lucian's presence a dull throb in her chest. But the ache no longer broke her. It fueled her. She smiled, small, fierce, untouchable. Let him come. Let them all come. She was ready. Chapter 5. Shadows of Desire. As Seraphina descended into the mist-shrouded valley, the first true light of morning pierced the fog like silver spears. The air grew cooler, heavier with the scent of damp earth and night-blooming flowers. Her bare feet pressed into soft moss, each step silent, deliberate. And then she felt it. Cedar smoke. Raw masculinity. Lycan. He was close. Too close. Her wolf surged forward in her mind, hackles raised, golden eyes blazing. Not in fear, but in fierce electric awareness. The rejected bond flared hot in her chest. A live wire twisting between pain and something darker, more dangerous. Desire. She hated that it still existed. Hated that even after his cruel words, her body remembered the heat of his nearness. the brush of his fingers on her jaw, the way his storm-silver eyes had darkened when the bond first snapped into place. Seraphina stopped, listened. The forest held its breath. Then from the ridge above, a low growl rolled down like distant thunder. She turned slowly. Lucien stood at the crest, silhouetted against the rising sun. Black hair tousled by the wind, shirt torn open at the collar, revealing the hard planes of his chest, eyes burning silver, locked on her with an intensity that stole the air from her lungs. Behind him, half a dozen elite trackers fanned out, silent shadows, weapons drawn, ready to obey their king. But Lucien raised one hand. Sharp, commanding gesture. They froze. He descended the ridge alone, each step measured, predatory. The mist parted around him like it feared his touch. Seraphina didn't move. She lifted her chin, golden aura flickering brighter beneath her skin. When he was only 10 paces away, he stopped. The bond pulsed between them, wild, angry, undeniable. Lucien's voice came out rough, gravel, and velvet. "You killed a rogue alpha, single-handedly." It wasn't a question. Seraphina's lips curved, just the barest hint of a smile. "I did." His gaze raked over her. The blood-streaked skin, the untamed hair, the regal way she stood naked and unashamed under the dawn light. "You're different." "I've always been different," she said quietly. "You were just too blind to see it." Lucien took another step closer. The air between them crackled. I was wrong. The admission hung heavy. Seraphina's heart lurched, betrayed by its own stupid hope. "You were cruel," she corrected, voice steady. "You humiliated me in front of the entire pack. You called me unwanted. You said you only claimed me out of pity." Lucien flinched visibly. His wolf whined inside him, a sound only she could hear through the bond. "I know what I said," he rasped, "and I'll carry the shame of it for the rest of my life." He took another step, close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I came to bring you home." Seraphina laughed, soft, bitter, beautiful. "Home?" She gestured to the wild valley around them. "I am home. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong." Lucien's jaw clenched. His hands flexed at his sides as if fighting the urge to reach for her. "You belong with your pack, with me." The word "me" came out like a growl. Seraphina stepped forward, closing the last distance between them. She tilted her head back to meet his eyes. "I belong to no one," she said, voice low and lethal. "Not anymore." The bond roared between them, fierce, hungry, desperate. Lucien's hand lifted, slowly, as if asking permission. She didn't move away. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle this time. No mockery, only raw, aching need. Seraphina's breath caught. For one heartbeat, the world narrowed to that single point of contact. Then she grabbed his wrist hard. She spun him, using his momentum to slam him back against the nearest tree trunk. The impact cracked bark. Lucien didn't fight. He let her pin him. Their faces were inches apart, breaths mingling, eyes locked. "I will never be your pity, Luna," she whispered, lips brushing his as she spoke. "If you want me, you'll have to earn me." Lucien's eyes flashed silver, pure wolf, pure hunger. "Then teach me," he growled. "Make me beg." The words sent a shiver racing down her spine. She leaned in, close enough that her lips almost touched his. Then she pulled back. "Just enough." "I don't want your apologies, Lucien Blackwood." She released him and stepped away, leaving him braced against the tree, chest heaving. "I want your devotion." She turned and walked deeper into the valley. Behind her, Lucien didn't move. He simply watched her go, eyes burning, wolf howling inside him. The trackers shifted uneasily, glancing between their king and the she-wolf who had just walked away from the most powerful alpha alive. Lucien's voice cut through the silence, low, dangerous, reverent. "Fall back." They obeyed instantly. He stayed where he was, staring after her retreating form until she vanished into the mist. Then he pressed his forehead against the tree trunk and closed his eyes. The bond still burned. But now it burned with something new. Hope and fear. Because Seraphina Kane was no longer the Omega he had rejected. She was the queen he would have to win. And he wasn't sure he was worthy. Deeper in the valley, Seraphina kept walking, heart pounding, skin tingling where his fingers had touched her cheek. She could still feel him, still taste the almost kiss on her lips. She hated how much she wanted more. But she wouldn't break. Not for him. Not for anyone. She was done being small. And the next time they met, She would make sure he remembered exactly who she had become. Earth and steel. Quiet power. A tall, scarred male steps from the shadows, silver eyes gleaming, a faint smile on his lips. He doesn't attack. He simply inclines his head. I've been waiting for you, Luna. Chapter 6. The Chase. Seraphina froze at the edge of the valley, the mist curling around her ankles like living silk. The new scent wrapped around her, earth after rain, tempered steel and something quietly lethal. The male who stepped from the shadows was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair streaked with silver. At the temples, despite looking no older than 35, scars traced jagged lines across his bare forearms and the open collar of his black shirt. His eyes were the pale silver of winter moonlight, sharp and unreadable. He inclined his head in a gesture that was neither bone or mockery, something between respect and challenge. I've been waiting for you, Luna. The word landed like a spark on dry tinder. Seraphina's wolf surged forward, golden eyes flashing in her mind. Who is he? She didn't lower her gaze. Her voice came out steady, edged with steel. And who exactly are you? He took one measured step closer, hands loose at his sides, showing no weapon, no threat, yet every line of his body radiated controlled power. Thornvera, he said, once beta to the Iron Fang pack. Now, something else. Seraphina tilted her head, studying him. Iron Fang was destroyed 5 years ago. Rogue attack. No survivors, and a faint, humorless smile touched his lips. Most believe that. It's easier that way. He lifted one scarred hand in a small, open gesture. I'm no threat to you. I felt your awakening from across 3 territories. That kind of power. It calls to those who still remember what a true Luna can be. The bond with Lucian still throbbed in her chest. Hot, restless, possessive. But Thorn's presence didn't clash with it. It complemented it like steel meeting flame. Seraphina narrowed her eyes. Why are you here? Thorn's silver gaze never wavered. Because the world is about to remember why the old bloodlines were feared. And because you're going to need allies who aren't blinded by pride or politics. He glanced back the way she had come, toward the ridge where Lucian had stood only minutes ago. Your king is close, he said quietly. His trackers are spreading out. He won't stop until he has you back. Seraphina's lips curved, just the barest hint of a dangerous smile. Then let him chase. Thorn's eyes gleamed with something like approval. Good, because running won't be enough anymore. He turned and gestured toward a narrow path that cut through the mist. Barely visible. There's a place not far from here, ancient, hidden. It belonged to the first, Lunas before the packs forgot them. If you want answers about your power, about what you're becoming, you'll find them there. Seraphina studied him for a long moment. Trust didn't come easily, not after Lucian. But something in Thorn's steady gaze felt honest, not soft, not gentle, just real. She nodded once. Lead the way. They moved through the mist in silence. Thorn's strides long but unhurried, matching hers perfectly. The forest around them seemed to lean in, trees older than memory, branches brushing her shoulders like quiet greetings. After nearly an hour, the path opened into a small, sheltered clearing. At its center stood a circle of standing stones, each one taller than 2 men, carved with runes that glowed faintly silver under the climbing sun. Thorn stopped at the edge. This is as far as I go. The stones only answer to Luna blood. Seraphina stepped forward without hesitation. The moment she crossed the threshold, the runes flared brighter, golden light answering gold. A low hum vibrated through the ground up her legs into her chest. Visions flashed behind her eyes, quick, searing. Silver-furred wolves with golden eyes leading armies under blood moons. Lunas who could calm raging alphas with a single look. Queens who forged peace with power, not submission. And pain, so much pain. The old bloodlines had been hunted, feared, erased because they were too strong to control. When the visions faded, Seraphina was breathing hard, hands clenched at her sides. Thorn watched her from outside the circle, expression unreadable. You saw, he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded. I'm not just awakening, I'm remembering. Thorn's voice was low. Then you understand why every alpha in these lands will want you. Some to claim you, some to destroy you. Seraphina turned to face him fully. And you, what do you want? For the first time, something flickered in those winter silver eyes, something raw, unguarded. I want to see the world remember what it lost, he said quietly. And I want to stand at the side of the queen who reminds them. The words hung between them, charged, unspoken promises. Before she could answer, the wind shifted. A new scent crashed over them, cedar smoke, fury, and raw, possessive need. Lucian. He burst from the trees on the far side of the clearing, eyes blazing silver, chest heaving. His elite trackers flanked him, but he waved them back with a sharp gesture. His gaze locked on Seraphina first, hungry, desperate, then snapped to Thorn. A growl ripped from his throat, low and lethal. "Who the hell are you?" Thorn didn't flinch. He simply stepped forward, placing himself just slightly between Seraphina and the king. "Someone who isn't trying to cage her," he said calmly. Lucian's claws extended with a soft snick. "She's mine." Seraphina stepped out of the stone circle, golden aura flaring bright around her. "I belong to no one," she said, voice ringing with quiet thunder. "Not you, not him, not anyone." Lucian's eyes snapped back to her. The fury in them cracked just for a heartbeat, revealing something raw beneath. Regret, longing, fear. "I was wrong," he said, voice rough. "I know that now, let me prove it." Seraphina held his gaze, unflinching. "Then prove it," she said softly. "But not by chasing me, not by commanding me." She took one step toward him, then another, until only a breath separated them. "Earn me, Lucian Blackwood." The bond between them roared, fierce, aching, alive. Lucian's hand lifted slowly, trembling just slightly. His fingers hovered near her cheek, asking, not taking. Seraphina didn't move away, but she also didn't lean in. She simply watched him, golden eyes burning. After an endless moment, Lucien lowered his hand. His voice came out hoarse. "I will." He stepped back, one deliberate step, then another. His eyes never left hers. Then he turned. "Fall back," he ordered his trackers. They obeyed instantly. Lucian glanced at Thorn one last time, silver eyes promising violence if he ever crossed a line, then looked back at Seraphina. "I'm not giving up," he said quietly. And then he was gone, melting into the trees like a shadow. Silence fell over the clearing. Thorn exhaled slowly. "He's not what I expected," he murmured. Seraphina's lips curved, just the smallest, fiercest smile. "He's learning." She turned back to the standing stones. The runes still glowed softly, and deep inside her the ancient power stirred. Stronger now. Hungrier. The chase wasn't over. It had only just begun. Chapter 7. Power Unleashed. Seraphina's palm pressed flat against the tallest standing stone, the runes ignited in a blinding cascade of gold. The light so fierce it forced her to close her eyes. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through her bones, ancient, alive, welcoming. The ground beneath her feet trembled once, then parted with the soft groan of stone sliding on stone. A hidden chamber yawned open at her feet. Steps carved from obsidian descending into cool darkness, lit only by the same golden glow that now lived in her veins. She glanced back once. Thorn Vera stood at the edge of the circle, silver eyes steady, giving her the space she needed. He said nothing. He didn't need to. Seraphina descended alone. The air inside the chamber was cool and still, scented with old stone, dried herbs, and something metallic, like blood long turned to memory. At the center of the small, circular room rested a single pedestal of black marble. Upon it sat the crown. Twisted silver vines wove around a circlet of polished black onyx, each dark stone pulsing faintly with inner golden light. It wasn't ornate. It wasn't delicate. It was power-given form, simple, unyielding, regal. Seraphina's breath caught. Carved into the stone beneath the crown were words in the old tongue. The language of the first Lunas. She didn't know how she understood them, only that she did. "The true queen wears no chains, she forges her own." The words sank into her like roots finding soil. She reached out slowly, fingers trembling just once. The moment her skin brushed the silver, the crown flared, golden light exploding outward in a soft, warm wave that wrapped around her like an embrace. Visions flooded her again, clearer this time. She saw queens of old, tall, fierce, golden-eyed, standing on battlefields, calming raging packs with a single raised hand. She saw them forging alliances not through submission but through unbreakable will. She saw them crowned beneath blood moons, their power so vast it bent the very moon itself, and she saw the end. The fear of lesser alphas, the hunts, the betrayals, the erasure of their bloodlines from history. But one vision lingered longest. A single Luna, standing alone against an army, crown blazing, refusing to kneel. She had died that day, but not before carving her name into legend. The visions faded, Seraphina opened her eyes. The crown rested in her hands now, cool at first, then warming to her touch as if it recognized her. She lifted it slowly. The moment it settled on her brow, power roared through her. It wasn't gentle. It was a storm. Golden light erupted from her skin in brilliant arcs. Her wolf howled inside her mind, not in pain, but in pure, triumphant ecstasy. Every scar on her body glowed for a heartbeat, then faded, leaving smooth, flawless skin beneath. Her senses sharpened to impossible levels. She could hear the heartbeat of a rabbit a mile away, smell the distant rain coming over the mountains, feel the pulse of the earth itself beneath her feet. And the bond. The rejected bond with Lycan still ached, but now it felt different. Smaller. Manageable. A thread she could pull or sever as she chose. She was no longer at its mercy. She was its master. Seraphina stood straighter. The crown felt right, weighty but not heavy. A promise. A vow. She whispered to the empty chamber, voice low and fierce. I will not be erased. She turned and climbed the steps. When she emerged into the daylight, the standing stone still glowed softly. Thorn waited exactly where she had left him, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Then he saw the crown. His winter silver eyes widened just for a heartbeat before he dropped to one knee. Not in submission, in reverence. My queen, he said quietly. Seraphina stepped toward him. The golden aura around her had deepened, become constant, like a second skin made of sunlight. Stand, she commanded. Thorn rose smoothly. You feel it too, she said. The power, the change. He nodded once. It's overwhelming, even from here. Seraphina's gaze drifted toward the horizon, toward Blackthorn territory, toward Lycan. He'll sense it, she murmured. He'll feel the shift in the bond. He'll know I'm no longer broken. Thorn's voice was low. And when he comes? Seraphina's lips curved, small, dangerous, beautiful. Then he will find a queen, not an omega begging for scraps. She looked at Thorn fully. And you, will you stand with me? Thorn met her gaze without flinching. I already have. A quiet understanding passed between them. Not heat, not possession, but something deeper. Alliance. Loyalty. The promise of a future forged together. Seraphina lifted her chin, the crown catching the sunlight in a blaze of silver and gold. Then we begin. She turned toward the path that would lead them out of the valley, toward the world that had once overlooked her. The crown pulsed once against her brow, warm and approving, and deep inside her chest the ancient Luna blood sang. She was awake. She was whole. She was unstoppable. Miles away, in the heart of Blackthorn territory, Lucian Blackwood staggered. He was in the middle of a war council, maps spread across the table, betas arguing strategy when the bond shifted. It didn't break. It didn't fade. It changed. The constant ache in his chest flared bright, then settled into something deeper, more powerful. He felt her, not as a distant echo, but as a blazing presence. Golden, fierce, untouchable. Lucian's hand slammed down on the table, cracking the wood. Every wolf in the room froze. My king? Ronan asked, voice tight. Lucian's eyes burned pure silver. She's different. He straightened slowly, claws retracting. She's no longer mine to chase. He looked toward the open window, toward the distant mountains where forbidden lands waited. She's become something we all should fear. And for the first time in his life, the Lycan King felt the cold touch of true uncertainty. Because the queen he had rejected was coming home, and she would not kneel. Chapter 8. Betrayal's Edge. As night fell over the edge of Blackthorn territory, Seraphina stepped forward into the moonlight. The crown of twisted silver and black onyx sat steady on her brow, its golden pulse matching the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. She didn't hide. She didn't crouch. She simply stood, shoulders back, chin high, golden aura flaring wide enough to illuminate the trees around her like a second dawn. Every wolf within miles felt it. The warning howl of a Blackthorn scout rose sharp and urgent, cut short as the pack realized who had returned. From the pack house, Lucian Blackwood's answering howl split the night, raw, desperate, reverent. It carried grief and hunger and something dangerously close to worship. Seraphina didn't flinch at the sound. She simply waited. Thorn Vera stood at her left shoulder, silent, steady, silver eyes scanning the tree line. He had not asked to stand there. He simply had. The first wolves appeared, scouts, then warriors, then betas, forming a loose semicircle at a respectful distance. They stared. Not with the old pity. Not with mockery. With awe. Then the crowd parted. Lucian emerged from the shadows of the pack house. Shirtless, chest-heaving, storm-silver eyes locked on her like she was the only thing in existence. He stopped 10 paces away. The bond between them thrummed, fierce, electric, alive with new power. Seraphina could feel his emotions crashing against her like waves. Regret, longing, pride, fear. He dropped to one knee. The entire pack gasped. Lucian Blackwood, the Lycan King who had never bowed to anyone, lowered his head before the woman he had once rejected. "My queen," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I was blind, I was cruel. I threw away the greatest gift the moon goddess ever gave me." He lifted his gaze, eyes burning silver, glistening at the edges. "I beg your forgiveness, not because I deserve it, but because I cannot live with what I did." Seraphina studied him. The crown on her brow pulsed once, warm, approving, but not commanding. She stepped forward slowly. The pack held its breath. When she reached him, she stopped just close enough that he could feel the heat of her aura. "Rise," she said quietly. Lucian stood, slowly, reverently. Their eyes locked. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Seraphina lifted her hand and placed it flat against his chest, right over his heart. The bond flared bright between them. Lucian's breath hitched. She felt it all. The storm of his guilt, the desperate ache of wanting her, the fierce determination to prove himself worthy. And she let him feel her strength, her anger, her unyielding resolve. "I do not forgive easily," she said, voice low enough for only him to hear. "But I do not punish forever either." She lowered her hand. Lucian exhaled shakily, relief and longing warring in his eyes. Before he could speak, Thorn stepped forward, just one step. "Careful, King," he said quietly. "She is no longer yours to command." Lucian's gaze snapped to Thorn, silver eyes narrowing with possessive fury. "Who are you to speak for her?" Thorn's lips curved, just the faintest hint of a dangerous smile. "I am the one who stood beside her when you turned your back." The air crackled with tension. Seraphina raised one hand, calm, commanding. "Enough." Both males stilled instantly. She looked between them, then at the gathered pack. "I have returned," she said, voice carrying like thunder wrapped in velvet. "Not as the Omega you once pitied, not as the mate you claimed out of duty." She touched the crown lightly. "I return as your Luna, as your queen, and I will lead not because I was chosen by fate, but because I choose myself." A low murmur rippled through the pack, then grew into reverent howls. They bowed not out of fear, out of respect. Lucian's eyes never left her face. "I will follow you," he said, voice thick. "Wherever you lead, whatever it takes." Seraphina held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "Then prove it every day with every breath." She turned to address the pack again. "The old ways are ending. The bloodlines that were erased are awakening, and I will not allow us to forget again." The howls rose louder, united, fierce, proud. As the night deepened, Seraphina walked toward the pack house, Lucian and Thorn flanking her on either side. The pack parted before her like water. Inside the Alpha's chambers, the fire crackled low. Seraphina stood at the tall window, looking out over the moonlit territory that had once been her prison. Lucian approached slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. She turned. He took one careful step closer. "I will spend the rest of my life earning back what I broke," he said. "But I need you to know, I have never wanted anyone the way I want you. Not just your power, not just your crown." His voice dropped to a raw whisper. "I want you." The woman who looked a king in the eye and refused to kneel. Seraphina studied him, seeing the cracks in the armor he had worn for so long. She stepped forward, close enough that he could feel her warmth. "Then show me," she said softly. "Show me every day that you see me, not as a prize, not as a duty, but as your equal." Lucian's hand lifted, slowly asking. She allowed it. His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle, reverent. "I swear it," he whispered. The bond between them hummed, stronger now, deeper, balanced. Thorn watched from the doorway, silent, watchful. Then he spoke quietly. "There is something you both need to know." Seraphina turned. Thorn's expression was grave. "I wasn't entirely truthful when we met." He met her gaze without flinching. "I was sent here, not by chance, by the Iron King, Rydian Voss. He felt your awakening too, and he wants your power for himself." Lucian growled low in his throat. Seraphina's eyes flashed gold. How long have you been spying? Thorn bowed his head, just slightly. Long enough to know I would rather die than see you caged. He lifted his gaze again. I choose you, Seraphina, not him. Silence stretched, charged, electric. Seraphina studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Then stay. Fight with us. But know this. The next time you lie to me, there will be no forgiveness. Thorn's lips curved, just the smallest relieved smile. Understood, my queen. Outside, the pack howls continued, rising to the moon. Inside, 3 powerful wolves stood together. An uneasy alliance, a fragile trust, and the promise of war on the horizon. Seraphina looked out the window again, toward the distant mountains where Rydian Voss waited. She touched the crown on her brow. Let him come, she whispered. The golden light flared brighter, and the night answered. At the edge of Blackthorn lands, a lone rider approaches under cover of darkness, carrying a black banner embroidered with the Iron King's crest. He stops just outside the border and raises his voice. Seraphina Kane, he calls. Rydian Voss demands your presence, refuse, and he will take you by force. The pack growls rise in fury. Lucian steps forward, claws extended. But Seraphina raises one hand. She steps to the edge of the territory line, crown blazing. Tell your king, she says, voice carrying like thunder across the night, that if he wants me, he will have to come and kneel. The rider pales. Then he turns and flees into the darkness. Chapter 9, The Queen Returns. The lone rider's horse reared as the black banner snapped in the night wind. He turned tail and fled into the darkness, the echo of Seraphina's voice still ringing across the border. Tell your king that if he wants me, he will have to come and kneel. The pack's growls rose into a unified roar, fierce, protective, proud. Lucian Blackwood stood at the territory line beside her, claws still extended, silver eyes blazing. Thorn Vera flanked her other side, silent and watchful, his winter-silver gaze tracking the fleeing rider until he vanished into the trees. Seraphina turned slowly, the crown of twisted silver and black onyx catching the moonlight in a blaze of gold. Her aura pulsed outward, warm, commanding, undeniable. Every wolf in the Blackthorn pack felt it settle over them like a mantle. She raised her voice, clear and carrying. Tonight the old ways end. No more Omegas forgotten. No more bloodlines erased. We remember who we are, and we will not be taken. The pack answered with howls that shook the very ground, hundreds of voices rising as one honoring their queen. Lucian stepped closer, voice low for her ears alone. They will come for you. Rydian Voss is not a patient man. Seraphina met his gaze unflinching. Then let him come. She walked forward, back into the heart of the territory she had once been invisible in. The pack parted before her like water before a blade. Heads bowed, eyes wide with awe. She passed the raised stone platform where Lucian had once rejected her. She didn't pause. She didn't look down. She climbed the steps and stood at the center, the same place where humiliation had once burned her alive. Now she stood crowned, radiant, untouchable. Lucian followed, then Thorn, 2 powerful males at her sides like silent sentinels. She lifted her arms. Blackthorn, she called. Tonight we prepare, tomorrow we fight. But know this, I do not ask you to die for me. I ask you to live for what we can become. The howls rose again, louder, fiercer. As the moon climbed higher, Seraphina descended the platform. The pack surged forward, not to touch her, but to kneel. One by one, warriors, betas, even the elders lowered themselves before her. An old she-wolf, gray-furred and scarred, reached out with trembling hands. Seraphina knelt before her instead, taking the elder's hands in her own. Thank you, the old wolf whispered, tears shining. For remembering us. Seraphina pressed her forehead gently to the elders. I never forgot, she murmured. I simply stopped hiding. When she rose again, the pack was hers, not through force but through truth. Lucian watched every moment, eyes never leaving her face. Pride warred with the ache of regret in his chest. He had once stood on that platform and broken her. Now he stood below it, humbled, ready to follow wherever she led. Thorn remained quiet, but his gaze tracked every movement, protective, vigilant. As the pack dispersed to prepare defenses, Seraphina walked toward the Alpha's chambers. Lucian and Thorn fell into step beside her without a word. Inside, the fire crackled low. The room felt different now, larger, warmer, hers. She turned to face them both. Rydian Voss will not wait long, she said. He will bring an army. We must be ready. Lucian nodded. The borders are already being reinforced. Our best warriors are on alert. Thorn spoke quietly. I know Rydian's tactics. He will try to divide us, send assassins first, then strike when we're weakened. Seraphina's eyes flashed gold. Then we will not be weakened. She looked between them. Two males who had once been strangers, now bound to her by choice and fate. I need you both, she said simply. Lucian, your strength, your knowledge of this land. Thorn, your insight into the enemy. Together we stand. Lucian's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. I will give you everything, he said, voice rough with emotion. My pack, my life, my crown if you want it. Seraphina studied him. The bond between them hummed, strong, balanced, no longer a chain but a bridge. I don't want your crown, she said softly. I want your heart. Lucian's breath caught. She reached up and brushed her fingers along his jaw, gentle, deliberate. Then it's yours, he whispered. Always has been. Thorn watched the exchange, silent, expression unreadable. Seraphina turned to him next. And you, Thorn Vera? He met her gaze steadily. I swore to stand beside you. That hasn't changed. She nodded once, acknowledgement, trust, promise. Then we fight as one. Outside, the pack's howls continued, rising and falling like a heartbeat.
Inside, Seraphina stood between two powerful males, crowned and unbreakable.
She walked to the tall window and looked out over the moonlit lands. Somewhere in the distant mountains, Rydian Voss was gathering his forces. She could feel his rage through the wind, cold, sharp, hungry. But she felt something stronger. Herself. She touched the crown on her brow. The golden light flared, bright, fierce, eternal. Let them come, she whispered again. And this time the night itself seemed to answer. Just before dawn, a scout bursts into the chambers, breathless, eyes wide. My queen, Rydian Voss's army has crossed the northern ridge. They fly black banners, and at their head, he rides. Lucian's claws extend with a soft snick. Thorn's hand goes to the blade at his hip. Seraphina turns from the window, eyes blazing gold. Then we meet him on the field. She steps toward the door, crown blazing. The true queen does not wait to be claimed. She looks back at them both, her king and her shield. Come. And together they walk into the coming war. Chapter 10, Crown of Fire. Seraphina stepped toward the door of the Alpha's chambers, crown blazing like captured starlight on her brow. Lucian, Blackwood, and Thorn Vera moved as one, flanking her without hesitation, two pillars of strength at her sides. Come, she said again, voice steady and ringing with quiet command. They walked out into the pre-dawn darkness together. The Blackthorn pack was already gathering. Hundreds of wolves forming disciplined lines along the northern ridge. The air thrummed with tension, with the low growls of anticipation and the metallic scent of sharpened blades. Every eye turned to her as she passed. They did not bow. They saluted, fists to chests, heads high, eyes fierce with pride. Seraphina climbed the ridge and stood at its crest. Below, across the wide valley, Rydian Voss's army spread like a black tide. Thousands of warriors under iron-gray banners, torches flickering like angry stars. At their head rode Rydian himself, tall, armored in dark steel, his white blonde hair whipping in the wind. His eyes, cold blue, locked on Seraphina the moment she appeared. He raised one gauntleted hand. The army stilled. His voice carried across the valley like rolling thunder. Seraphina Kane, you stand on borrowed time. Step down from that ridge and come to me willingly, or I will burn your precious blackthorn to ash and take what is mine by right. Seraphina's lips curved, just the faintest, most dangerous smile. She lifted her chin. You speak of rights, Rydian Voss, she called back, voice clear and carrying farther than any alpha's roar. But you forget one truth. She touched the crown lightly. I am no one's to take. Rydian's face twisted with fury. Then you choose war. He dropped his hand. The iron army surged forward. Howling, weapons raised, a dark wave crashing toward the ridge. Seraphina did not flinch. She raised both arms. Golden light erupted from her in a brilliant arc, bright enough to turn night into day for one blinding heartbeat. Every blackthorn wolf felt it. Strength flooding their limbs, courage igniting in their chests, the ancient power of the first lunas flowing through them like wildfire. Blackthorn, she shouted. The pack answered with a roar that shook the mountains. They charged. The two armies collided in the valley like storm fronts. Lucian fought at Seraphina's right, claws extended, silver eyes blazing, tearing through iron warriors with ruthless precision. Every strike was fueled by the need to protect what he had almost lost forever. Thorn moved at her left, silent, deadly, blade flashing like moonlight on water. He cut through the enemy ranks with surgical grace, always keeping Seraphina in his line of sight. And Seraphina herself? She did not shift. She did not need to. She walked through the chaos like a queen walking through her garden, golden aura flaring brighter with every step. Iron warriors who lunged at her froze mid-strike, eyes wide with sudden awe. Some dropped their weapons, some fell to their knees. She did not strike them down. She simply looked at them, and they remembered who they were. A Luna, not a prize. A queen. Rydian Voss broke through the fray on his massive black warhorse, eyes locked on her. He leaped down, sword drawn, and strode toward her. "You think a crown makes you invincible," he snarled. Seraphina stopped. She met his gaze unflinching. "No," she said softly. "Love makes me invincible." Behind her, Lucian and Thorn fought their way to her side, bloodied, breathing hard but unbroken. Rydian laughed, cold, bitter. Then watched them die. He lunged. Seraphina raised one hand. Golden light slammed into him like a physical force, knocking him back several paces. He staggered, eyes wide. She advanced. "You came for power you could never understand," she said, voice low and lethal. "You came to cage what was never yours." Another step. Rydian swung his sword. She caught the blade between her palms, golden light flaring along the steel. The metal glowed red-hot, then shattered like glass. Rydian stumbled back, weaponless. Seraphina closed the distance. She placed one hand over his heart. He froze. She felt it, the cold rage, the fear, the emptiness inside him. And she spoke, not with anger, but with quiet, unshakable truth. "You will kneel," she said. Rydian's knees buckled. He dropped first to one knee, then both. The Iron Army faltered. One by one, they lowered their weapons. The battle ended, not in slaughter, but in surrender. Seraphina looked out over the valley, over the kneeling warriors, over her own pack standing proud and unbroken. She turned to Lucian and Thorn. They both dropped to one knee before her, not in defeat, but in devotion. Lucian lifted his eyes to hers, storm silver shining with tears he did not try to hide. "I love you," he said simply. "I always have. And I always will." Thorn's voice was quieter, but no less fierce. "I stand with you. Always." Seraphina reached down, first to Lucian, then to Thorn, and drew them both to their feet. She looked out over the valley one last time. Then she raised her voice, clear, carrying, triumphant. "The old wars are over. The old fears are finished. Today we begin again, not as conquerors, but as one people. Under one crown." The Blackthorn pack howled, joyful, victorious, alive. The Iron Warriors rose slowly, eyes wide, hearts changed. And Seraphina stood between her king and her shield, crowned in silver and gold, the true queen of them all. As the first light of true dawn broke over the mountains, she smiled, small, fierce, radiant. She had been rejected. She had been broken. She had been pitied. And she had risen, not because fate demanded it, but because she chose it, and the entire world would never forget her name. If this story of Seraphina Kane, the rejected Omega who rose to become an unbreakable queen, lit a fire in your chest, if you felt every heartbreak, every surge of power, every triumphant howl, then don't let it end here. Share the fire. Drop in the comments if Seraphina's journey made you want to stand taller. Tag a friend who needs to remember they're never just anything. Tell me in the comments, which moment made you cheer the loudest? Who would you cast as Seraphina, Lucian, or Thorn? Do you want more? Spin-offs? The war with a new threat? Her reign? A prequel about the first Lunas? Your voice decides what happens next. Because queens aren't born in silence, they rise when the world hears them roar. So roar with me, right now, in the comments. Let's make this story echo.